Hi, I'm Kat Robinson. You may know me from Make Room for Pie, which airs on Arkansas PBS, or perhaps you've read one of my 7 books on food in the natural state. We're in an unusual time though. Right now, many of us are confined to a small area, to our homes, to where we live, in a time where we're practicing social distancing. It's also a hard time for those in the restaurant business. After all, dining rooms have closed across the state in response to COVID-19. For many of us, that gives us an opportunity that you might not have considered. Restaurant use and restaurant visitation has really been a thing of the latter half of the 20th century and, of course, all so far of the 21st century. We are so used to just being able to come up with an idea, say, I'd like some Thai food for dinner, or I really am digging some burgers, and being able to go to a restaurant and sit down or go through a drive-through and have that food immediately available. In this time, we have an opportunity. We can go and explore our own culinary roots here in the state of Arkansas or from wherever you're from. This is a good time to come and bring back an idea. Let's bring food to the table. My goal is to help share what goes to that table through recipes that I know. You may not know, but you will know by the time we're done. Let's get started. Today, I'm going to show you how to make gumbo. Now, a lot of people associate gumbo with Louisiana. And yes, this is certainly a dish that originated in LA, if you want to talk about lower Arkansas. This is a dish that I have had many times in my life, but up until about 2000, I really hadn't experienced it. I went to the New Orleans School of Cooking back in 1999 and met a fellow by the name of Kevin who taught me all sorts of amazing things. You want to see what Kevin looks like? Well, this is Big Kevin, and this is his Bayou blend, and I will actually be using this today. But while I give you these ingredients, let me let you know, you can substitute for so many things. Let's get started. We're going to be using a lot of different ingredients that you may or may not have around your kitchen. I'll be talking about some of the ways you can substitute those ingredients if you don't happen to have them, especially if you've done the grocery store pickup and they didn't put everything in, which did happen to me in this instance. I'll be telling you more about that with future recipes as well. Before we get started cooking today, to make our gumbo right here, we need to talk about prime ingredients that need to be in every single gumbo that you're going to have. And that starts with Trinity. Now, Trinity means many things to many people, but in this case, we're talking about a combination that is similar to the French mirepoix. The French use a combination of celery, onion, and carrots. But in the Americas, we substitute those carrots for a type of pepper. In this case, a sweet pepper, and usually a green bell pepper. So today, we're starting off with chopped green bell pepper, celery, which is very cheap from the store. You might as well go ahead and get it fresh and chop it up yourself. This, of course, is onion. Now, this is fresh chopped onion, but if you are in a pinch and you haven't been able to get onions in a while, desiccated will work just fine, or like most people call it, dried onion. I just really like the word desiccated. Now, folks of Cajun and Creole influence will tell you that whenever you're talking about Trinity, you also need to talk about the Pope. This right here is some chopped up Pope, or to be more succinct, this is garlic. Garlic appears on 6 continents around the earth. There are tons of different cuisines that utilize garlic, and of course you really need it for a very good gumbo. We're also going to need to make a roux, which I'll show you here in just a moment, which is why we've got some butter. In this case, it does not matter if your butter is salted or unsalted. If you don't have butter, or you happen to have some lard, you have some bacon drippings or ham drippings, or pretty much any sort of fat drippings, they can be used in its place, but for the simplicity of it, I like to use fresh salted butter. You need to spice your roux. We'll get to that too. You notice I have this on hand already because when we get into making a roux, it's going to get very quick. This is flour, and this is all-purpose flour. Please do not use self-rising flour in your roux. You'll be real sad. We'll just leave it at that. Now, gumbos need a protein, and there's a lot of different proteins you can use. If you're looking at South Louisiana, andouille sausage is very common, as are different varieties of seafood. Now, these are unusual times. I have not been to a grocery store since March 13th, so my access to a grocery store has relied on others and on pickup services. I've tried to order sausage and have been unable to get it in the pickup, unfortunately. I've also tried to order fresh chicken, and sometimes it comes through, and today it did not. What did come through, though, was this. This is a roasted rotisserie bird. This one happens to be the savory variety, so it's already spiced, it's fully cooked, and it's from Kroger. Now, I know there's some home chefs there that are cringing over this, thinking, why would you start with an already cooked chicken? Well, as I keep mentioning, these are unusual times. I'm going to show you how to use this in that. Then it comes to the sausage, and my mom just happened to have some turkey smoked sausage. It's not andouille, but we're going to make do, because that's what we do, right? So let's start off by doing a little bit of recipe prep. We're going to go ahead and slice up our sausage as somewhat wide and somewhat thin, so we get a lot of the sausage flavor in the gumbo as it cooks. This will also give us more area to sear before we actually put it into the rest of the gumbo matter. More flavor is better. So I have a limited amount of bell pepper. There were only 2 bell peppers available in this particular delivery, so that's what I've got to work with. So I'm only going to use one of these and a portion of the chicken to put in the pot. And it probably works out well because this is the pot I have to work with, and it's smaller than I'm used to. But we're going to make it work. Now, since we're limiting our amount of sausage, we are going to use a bit more chicken. And in fact, we're using the chicken mostly because the chicken was a cheaper protein for us. The chicken was on sale for $4 rather than the $7 it normally is at the store. By taking this chicken and removing the meat from the bones, we're able to preserve more than 1.5 pounds of meat. That's a lot of meat. That's a lot of protein for your family. We don't have to worry about waiting for the chicken to cook, but we are going to go ahead and sear it along with the fats that come from the sausage, so we can get a little bit more of the flavor that we're searching for. A few more things you're going to need are Cajun seasoning, like the Big Kevin's Bayou blend that I'll be using today. I also really love to use Joe stuff. This happens to be what I have on hand. And you're going to need some broth. And usually I will go for any sort of poultry broth. Chicken is, of course, common. But this is turkey broth that I rendered myself while working on a project last week, taking an entire turkey and making 7 different meals out of it. My family's very tired of turkey. Now that we have the chicken disassembled and chopped, and we've sliced up that turkey sausage, we're going to go ahead and start our gumbo. Not in this pan, but in that pot. In fact, let's go ahead and pull the top off. Nice, clean, non-stick pot. You can use whatever pot works for you. This is what I happen to have available. I usually like a much bigger pot, but since we're doing a smaller amount of gumbo, this is going to work just fine. So go ahead and start off and get the heat going. There we go. Make sure it's not up too high. Let's start off on a medium-high heat. And we're going to go ahead and begin this process by putting in our turkey sausage. Now, if it was andouille, if it was any other sausage style meat, it'd probably have a lot more fat than this. So if you're looking for something that's a bit more health conscious, this may actually be your way to go anyway. It just happens to be what I had on hand. I like using a silicone spatula for this sort of operation because I can get even closer to the walls of the pot, and it's going to be very important when we get to the roux. Notice that I'm making sure that every one of these sausages has a surface down on this pie. So we want to get as much flavor as possible into the gumbo. And besides, who doesn't like a good sear on their sausage? If you're popping just a bit, we'll flip it over and you see there's already some browning going on. We're not looking for a hard browning yet. Just want to make sure that every piece gets hit by the heat before we add that chicken. Now that the sausage is starting to sweat, we're going to go ahead and add in our chicken. We don't need to use all of it for this application, but it's nice to have as much as we need on hand. We're going to pull out this big old hunk of skin though. There is no appropriate ratio here. If you want more sausage, get more sausage. If you want more chicken, put in more chicken. If it's seafood, hang off a bit. Now that the sausage is starting to release its juices and the chicken is starting to caramelize, just like that, we're going to go ahead and set it to the back burner so that it can cool a little bit while we make our roux. There are some important things that you need to know when you make a roux. For first, turn off your phone, turn off any sort of distractions, tell the kids that you are unavailable, do not answer the phone, do not answer the door. This time is for you and this beautiful thing called a roux. I realize it's just butter or any sort of fat and flour, but a moment's hesitation in the process can mess up the entire thing. If you like the idea of taking your time, carefully, preciously massaging your roux into something magnificent, you go right ahead. I like to live life dangerously. I have my skillet here over medium-high heat, and you'll notice that this butter, which is at room temperature, is actually smoking as it goes into the pan. I want to make sure that my fat, in this case the butter, completely dissolves before I started adding in the flour. And the moment I start adding in flour, it's all over, baby. That's all we're going to do is make some roux. I've got my spatula ready. Got my flour ready. Let's make a roux. Some people go by the figure eight method. I go by the, I see something, I scrape it off the side method. I'm far more natural. You'll notice immediately, you'll see clumping happening with the flour. That's okay. It's just going to take a little bit for all those butter atoms get attached to all those flour atoms, molecules, however it works. And it may not seem like a lot, but it's a good start. If I were making a roux for a much larger pot of gumbo, I would either use twice this amount or I would make more than one batch of roux. There's even a method where you bake the flour and then incorporate it into the butter. I kind of feel like it's cheating, however it works for you. One thing I will say, canned roux is an abomination and should be avoided. See, I've got this nice beast here of roux going on. It's all bubbly, and I don't know if you've noticed, but it just started to turn a little bit brown. It's because all that flour is cooking. There's also a particular smell to this. It's not like bread. Bread is usually a yeasty smell. It's kind of what you smell when you bake a pot pie. If it starts to smell like it's burning, turn off. Go wash your pan out and start over. Nobody likes the burned roux. Fortunately, it's relatively cheap and quick to make. Taking, in this example, about 4 tablespoons of butter against 1/4 cup of flour. Said it takes a while. If I was using a pan that did not have a non-stick surface, I would probably be using a whisk. A whisk allows you even more possibility of stirring everything away from the heat as it burns. And if you get flicked like that, you immediately wash your hands. This stuff is napalm. Right back to it. If you get roux on your hands while you're in the process of cooking this, you must immediately get your hands under a faucet, cold running water. You want to get the heat off as it is. I won't blister, but I'll have a red mark. I never said that cooking wasn't dangerous. And a roux is not where I would start a brand new chef, especially younger folks, say younger than my daughter. Now you'll notice that the roux is starting to get this nice, lovely chocolate color. It's milk chocolate. But it can go darker. Keep your nose in it, make sure that you don't smell burning. If you do, just pull it off the heat. Now we're going to get to the point where we're going to want to stop the color from turning, and at that point we need to add something that's going to stop the cooking process. A liquid, a cold, comparatively cold item in there, or in our case, we're going to add some vegetables right on top of this roux. Look at that. Oh my goodness. We're starting to get a little bit of dark chocolate in there. It's one of the reasons it's going to keep on going. And this is quite hot. Before it gets grainy, all right, I'm going to dump some of my celery in there, right on top of it. And some bell pepper. Try to get all that roux incorporated in as quickly as possible to quit the roux making process before it can burn. Nice dark roux there. Let's throw in some onions. Notice I didn't dump them all in at once. And part of it's a texture thing. Because while we're here with our roux, and we're going to play with it for just a little bit, we're also caramelizing our vegetables and cooking them just a little bit before they go into the gumbo pot. Looks kind of dirty, huh? Well, effectively, we have just made all these pieces of vegetable quite dirty. You notice I didn't turn down my heat, but I've made this many times. I am going to put some onion in there so we can get caramelizing. And onion, as it cooks, will release more liquid. Let's drop in just a little bit more of the bell pepper. Now, the trick is not overload what's coming up in your gumbo pot. Because what will go in this pot is this vegetable melange that I'm making now. It will include the sausage and chicken over here, and it's going to include a good amount of the turkey stock. Oh, it smells good. Now this is a good time to go ahead and start seasoning what you got here. I'm going to throw in a little bit of this Bayou blend. Yes, I took the cap off. Could I tell you how much that was? No, about half a cup. I could look on the side, but I'm used to cooking like this. Now, this all depends on how much you like your spice. This is a great option for Cajun and Creole type spices. One you're probably most familiar with is Tony's Ashery. I like Big Kevin's. I really like Joe's stuff that is also produced by the New Orleans School of Cooking. I probably have 20 or 30 different blends I've used over the years. You'll just know. There's a smell to it. So good. So, I've incorporated my vegetables and I'm getting them all cooking here. But this is not where my gumbo is going to live in the end. It's going to end up in that pot over there. While my vegetables are cooking here, I'm going to make a bit of a well. I'm going to throw in about a tablespoon's worth of butter. And I'm going to add garlic. Once that butter cooks that garlic and the spices start to cook with the vegetables, oh, you got to smell this. This is fantastic. If you don't have a Cajun blend, I'll hook you up with a recipe for how to make your own. Does not necessarily require cayenne. My onions have just started to get translucent. Everything seems very nice and fragrant. Now it's time to add them to the pot. I'm going to move this over here. Bring my pot right on top of my stove. And put those hot vegetables right down on top. It's amazing how that sear just suddenly stops. See, still got the heat going. I want to incorporate all these searingly hot vegetables that just got their bath in this roux, along with the garlic and its butter. And I'm going to mix all of these up with the chicken and the sausage. Oh, God, how good this smells. This is amazing. How about that? Now, I mean, you could eat it like this. You want to add in some broth, and you want this to have time to meld together. Now, I have 4 cups of turkey broth, and I'm just going to put in enough until I see it's about even with most of that. Those are turkey solids left over from my turkey roast, in case you're wondering. So it's a real, honest to goodness turkey broth. Let's stir these in together. Doesn't that look amazing? You've got the green of the bell pepper and the celery, the red of the sausage, the white of the onion and the chicken in this beautiful brown broth. It already smells amazing. But a good gumbo needs time. So we're going to take our lid. We're going to adjust our heat down to medium. And we're going to clean up a little bit around the kitchen. So the gumbo has been going now for about an hour and a half. I've come in every 20 minutes to give it a stir. Now I'm going to add one more element, and that is these green onions. Just a little bit of crunchy bite before we get done with the entire operation. Of course, be sure to stir this all in together. As you can see, it's very, very hot. While I am on the lowest setting possible for this stove, it's still imparting quite a bit of heat because, of course, it's fire, right? It's time. By this point, the smell of the gumbo has permeated the house. It's very comforting, it's very warm. And this right here, of course, is also very warm. Let's take a look. Oh, wow. Can you see how this roux has just completely thickened and become this gumbo, this collection of different vegetables and meats amalgamated with good spices. So I have a bowl of rice here. You can just serve it on regular rice. French bread is also very good. Some people serve it over potato salad, and those people are particular, but that's okay. It's getting up underneath all of this good roux goodness. Now, do you see how the chicken just utterly fell apart here? And our sausage has darkened, and our vegetables have pretty much just dissolved in this. It's just gorgeous. Now you can continue to let your roux meld a little bit more for the flavors, but at this point it's essentially done. This is dinner. And best part is, if you find you have way too much, gumbo freezes really, really well. So how's it taste? Well, it's very, very hot, but I'm gonna give it a shot. It's comforting. The flavors are so good. If you like a little LA cooking, whether it's Louisiana or Lower Arkansas, give this recipe a try. Use whatever proteins you need or happen to have on hand. Serve it over whatever starch you have for a nice, filling, wonderful meal.